2012 Honda Accord with the 2.4 inline 4-cylinder, or the K24 as it's more commonly known. Today we're replacing the starter. Let's get to it. Now the starters on these vehicles are located underneath of the intake manifold, so you will need to remove this. With that in mind, it is a very good idea to go ahead and get yourself some new intake manifold gaskets, or plenum gaskets as they're also referred to. For this video, we're going to be using the Felt Pro Mike Sierra 97057. And we're also going to be using the CarQuest Premium Starter 19009 Sierra. Whenever doing one of these starters, I usually like to isolate the intake manifold without removing the throttle body, because the throttle body has coolant going through it. And if you remove these throttle body bolts, you're going to need to replace this gasket with it. So I try not to remove those bolts, because if I have to do that and replace the gasket, it just makes the repair more expensive for my customers, and I try to make my repairs as inexpensive as possible. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the intake tube right here along with these tubes coming off of it, so I can have a nice open area, so when I do remove the intake manifold, I can just lay it over here out of the way to access the starter underneath. Starting off, we're going to go ahead and remove this line from the intake piping. This smaller line right here underneath is a coolant line, so we want to keep those intact. So while pressing down on this piece, we're going to gently pull and wiggle. A little flathead screwdriver. And for this side, rather than messing with this again, I like to just unplug the intake manifold. I'll just unplug the MAF sensor here, disconnect the wire from where it has its little pin to keep it on the intake box here. I'll take the whole piece out. Next, let's go ahead and isolate these wires by disconnecting the connector right here. The wire right here. And then pulling on this pin right here, so we can lift this entire assembly up. So we come in here with a needle nose from underneath. See if we can't disconnect these without them breaking. Pull this wiring harness out of the way and tug it down here with the fuel injectors. Now on this side, you can follow this vacuum line right here down to the intake manifold right here where it connects. Go ahead and get yourself a pair of pliers, very gently grab that vacuum line and start twisting it to break it loose. Flathead screwdriver, one more pry on that. All right, let's go ahead and start removing the intake manifold bolts. I held on with 5 12 millimeters. Sorry, I think there's 3 bolts and 2 nuts, so they're not all bolts. Underneath of the throttle body is going to be a little bit tough to get on camera, I think. Right down here, see this bolt right there. Perfect. That's going to be hard to get on camera. Let's go ahead and just finish removing this plastic crowel. And if we look right down here, you can see our final 12mm bolt right there. And this one's going to be a little bit difficult to get to, so what I think I'm going to try to do. So I'm going to go at this with my little teeny tiny 1/4" ratchet with my standard 12mm socket on it. And that's broken off. Or I should say the bolt is broken loose. Once you get the intake manifold clear, you can see that there's a little tab right here holding a vacuum line. You can actually just push that vacuum line right off of that. And then on the inside, you see another vacuum line. You can pull that off of that and disconnect the tiny little clamp right here. Let's go ahead and pinch it. See if you can't give it a good twist. Apparently I cannot give it a good twist. That does not want to break loose. So let's try it the other way. It doesn't want to break loose at all. Fun. Where's my screwdriver at? Well, we're just gonna go ahead and try to pry it off. Being very careful not to apply pressure. You'll break that nipple off right there. You definitely don't want to do that. It's gonna suck. Go ahead and push that out of the way. And then we can go ahead fold this out of the way just how I like. And this one a little bit longer. ourselves a support bar. To hold that intake manifold out of the way. And we now have access to the top of the starter. Now this harness right here, you can press down on this small tab right in the middle, and you should be able to pull this right off to get that out of the way. I don't know that you would need to remove that, but it makes me feel good to do it. Go ahead and pinch these two tabs together, and you can release that part of the harness. Push down on this push tab. Release the signal wire from the starter, and then right here on top you have this small little protective cover to make sure nothing comes back in connection to the starter. So now, because honestly I always forget to do this, completely my fault, the first step should be to remove the negative battery cable, but I always forget to do it. Alright, go ahead and disconnect that negative battery cable. It's 10mm. Tuck that out of the way so it doesn't reconnect by accident. And now, back to the starter. We've got our teeny tiny little 12mm again. And go ahead, now that we won't get electrocuted. And it actually appears that it would be easier to go over top like this. Maybe it's because it's an automatic transmission? No, there's a coolant line. That's weird. Maybe it differs on the year. Usually I can just get right in there. So let's go ahead and switch over from a standard to a deep 12mm. It's a little bit more length. We're gonna go over these coolant lines. There we go. Finally got it on there. There's the nut for the starter. For the main power lead that goes from the battery to the starter, I should say. And usually there's a washer that goes with it, but it looks like I don't have a washer this time. So, anyway, I usually like to turn this protective cover inside out so I don't have to fight it when I'm reinstalling it, and that way I can just pull on it and it'll pop right back the right way after it's been bolted back down. Huh. Fun stuff. The actual starter bolts, it looks like it's going to be a 17 and a 14. And the bottom bolt is a 17 and the top bolt is a 14. Damn. Once you break that 14 loose, you can usually get this one out by hand. It's got this really long neck to it so that you can access it easier, which is a really good idea. I ain't gonna lie, if this just had like a standard bolt head on it, it would be a pretty difficult bolt to get out. So That's what the top bolt looks like. Like I said, it has this really long neck on it so that the head of the bolt is actually way out here near the back of the starter. It's a good idea. I like that they did that. Moving down here, throw our 17 on, and break our back trying to break this bolt loose. God damn. Bolt is always down super tight. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna put that right there. Put my pipe on it. Yeah. Got one more good turn for good measure. Come back in here with the electric ratchet. And there's the lower bolt, and as you saw when it was coming loose, the starter is officially disconnected and you can pull it straight out. That's pretty much all there is to it. Go ahead and install your new starter. Your intake manifold gaskets that I was talking about at the beginning of the video go right here. Make sure you replace these. If you don't, you could end up having an air leak. That would be bypassing your MAF sensor, and it's going to throw off your air to fuel ratio really bad, and the vehicle may be undrivable. These gaskets are like $10. Just replace the gaskets, so you'll be happier in the long run knowing it's done right. This video helped you out. Leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.